got Marco Martinez over there. We're going to be talking OTAs, the 49ers schedule, and of course, the big cherry on top, Trey Lance. All after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's up, everybody? We're back here with another episode of 49ers Red Zone. It's been a minute, but we had to come back in style. OTAs week 2 is starting today. But first, Marco, how are you doing, man?
Man, I've been good, man. All the stress levels gone. All that schoolwork's done. Got to graduate real quick. You know what I mean? And then just work stuff. How you been, man?
I'm good. It's my turn to graduate. I graduate tomorrow from high school, so it'll be a pretty fun time for me as well. But I'm glad we could get on here. And there's been a lot really in the last couple of weeks, both negative and positive. So what are your kind of quick thoughts on the 49ers over the last couple of weeks that you've been seeing?
Before we get started, man, have you announced to everyone where you're headed?
I am headed next year to Wisconsin University, and so yeah, that'll be a
That's
experience.
fire.
I'm definitely looking forward to enjoying it. Looking forward to just doing everything, and yeah, I'm gonna minor in sports communication over there, so I'm looking forward to just the entire experience. Yeah,
And you're majoring in computer science, right?
yeah, in computer science.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this smart guy, computer science over here doing all that good work. Well, congratulations to you on headed to Wisconsin. Congratulations to you on your high school career being over, and just that college experience. Once you get out there, man, it's one hell of a ride. 4 years go by hella fast, so make sure you definitely enjoy every single moment of it. Obviously, you'll be going to some big basketball games. You'll be going to football games, man. You're gonna be living it up out there in Wisconsin. I'll definitely have to go out there to hopefully the Niners play out there, the Packers, and all. I have to meet up with you out there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
But on
definitely.
the 49ers. So first of all, thank you, my 49er faithfully. We appreciate you always. We also got 49er sickness in the house podcast. Make sure you guys subscribe to them. So going back to the 49ers, and so I'll be honest, I went away from social media for a while. So I've been trying to catch up on what the 49ers are doing and everything. Like I literally was so slammed that I deleted all of social media from my phone in order to get my work done and just do all that stuff. So first thing I noticed was I see everyone is in like that mindset of just bashing on Trey Lance. I'm talking about he can't throw. I saw he changed his throwing mechanics, which is beautiful to see. Actually, the 49ers have dug into OTAs. I've actually heard some good things about Trey Lance over the past few days from OTAs from the Wave 1. So that's just some stuff that we could talk about a little bit. But what did you think about from OTA ones? Because I know that Grant stuff happened. The only reason why I found out was because one of my buddies texted me like, "Hey, what's going on with Grant and Javon Kinlaw?" And I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" So I caught myself up. That was crazy. Like I didn't like that was very interesting. But talk to me about OTAs, Rohan, because you're a little bit more caught up, and I could kind of give like what's going on based on that because I have been away for a little while.
Yeah, so I mean, OTAs, we really got two pieces of information from the interviews and then from the reports of practice. After all the bashing of Trey Lance, he came out. He did pretty well, and in his first OTA period with the media, reports said he went 16 of 18. Now, 12 of those 16 completions were checkdowns in a way. They were to tight ends and running backs. However, the one thing that I said last week that I actually liked about that, when you're throwing checkdowns, that means you're going through the entirety of your progressions. That's something we didn't necessarily always see from our previous quarterback. So it's nice to see that. And also, it's good to take the short pass at times. Sometimes we're a little too aggressive. So that's something that you saw, and it's only one practice. Then the real big news came from obviously the interviews where Trey Lance, he got up there and looked like a veteran. He said, I don't really care what the media says. I only care about my locker room teammates. And he was really composed as a 22-year-old up there on the media stand. Other news essentially came from the coaching staff. We saw a good amount of injuries, which meant that the 49ers, they're rookies, and these young guys are going to be thrust into the spotlight. Some nice news that we both anticipated. Jalen Moore is now playing with the first team as a right guard. Justin Skule is back there from his torn ACL. He is starting the right tackle at the moment. But that was some nice news that we heard. And obviously, the main caveat that we've expected now this entire offseason, Aaron Banks is the starting left guard and should be that for the entirety of this offseason.
So the first thing I heard from what you said, right, the check down and everything. So that it actually connects to what I've been hearing from my guy over the past few days. So he said the maturity of Trey Lance is there. The full maturity of him getting through everything, him learning the offense, and him just being a leader in general. Like the maturity level is absolutely there. And to me, that's what I love to hear from a quarterback who's coming into his second year, but in reality, he's coming into his first year as a full-time starter because he obviously the Jimmy Garoppolo was with the 49ers. He still is, but he was with the 49ers as the main guy last year. So just hearing that Trey Lance is going through all his progressions, checking the ball down, getting it to tight end, and not pushing the ball and putting it in harm's way is honestly the best news that we could possibly get from OTAs because that's just showing a young quarterback's maturity level is sky high now, right? The confidence level, like, as you said, going to the podium and saying, you know what? I don't care what the media says. It doesn't matter. What the media says doesn't dictate how my coaches feel and how I play. And that's how all players should feel, right? And then at the same time, we have other players who are allowing the media to get into their head. And
Right.
to to me, media should always be able to be critical of players, right? We obviously when you're talking players, you want to criticize, but not to a certain extent. Like you want to be able to look at the game a certain way, but be able to call things how you see it, right? So for
Mhm.
example, if I see someone messing up, I'm gonna call it how I see it. But I'm not gonna take anything personal. I'm not gonna make it personal. If a player takes a shot at me, I'm not gonna no offense because also has a job and he has a family. So I understood Javon Kinlaw's situation. I understood where Grant was coming from and all that stuff. It just you don't want to see players getting physical or threatening. You don't want to see um, media personnel getting into it with guys like that. But
Right.
at the end of the day, I think Javon Kinlaw is just so frustrated because his injury last year did not allow him to be on the field. And all that anger from that injury, all that anger has built up for him to want to be able to show everyone what he's capable of doing, why he was a first round draft pick versus Trey Lance in the other sense is he's a quarterback of a team. If he comes out and does that, if he was to come out and do what Javon Kinlaw did, like I don't mind Javon Kinlaw doing that because he's a defensive tackle, he's a defensive lineman. You want those dudes to be
Want them
like
to be physical. Yeah.
yeah, like you want them to go ape shit every once in a while on people and like want to kick quarterbacks ass and kick offensive linemen's ass. But the reason why you can't have a Trey Lance like doing that, right? So he's a face of the franchise. He's the leader of the organization. If he came out and did that, you know how fast the media would eat him up as a quarterback, especially a quarterback of color. He would get eaten up by the media like that. So to see him come and it sucks that it's a double standard for these quarterbacks, right? So to see Trey Lance come out on the podium and say, you know what, I don't care what you guys all say. Say I don't have a quarterback arm, like whatever they were saying, his fatigue or whatever. Say all you want. I know what I am. I'm gonna show you guys. That was a great sign. Going more into OTA, so they pick up today, right? Second wave OTA started. So I'm gonna let you know what my guy said. So I was talking to my guy, and then it got confirmed today on the Bobby Karan show of ESPN Honolulu. I was on the ESPN Honolulu radio today, and Bobby was telling me he came up and said, he goes, yeah, so I know you've heard that the 49ers are extremely ecstatic on Trey Lance. Like that's what he's hearing. A lot of these people are saying that, oh, Trey Lance isn't good. He's not picking up the offense. He's just not good, right? That's what they're saying. He goes, well, I've heard opposite, and so have I. So I spoke to someone in the organization who has been at every OTA, been watching the practices, and he was pretty much telling me that where Trey Lance is in terms of knowing the offense and where he's at as a quarterback is a lot farther than what people think. And to me, that was the best thing I've heard in weeks because if Trey Lance is at his best and he's where I think he is and where the 49ers think he is, this team is a 10 plus win team, possibly 11 and 12 because he is a little bit more a lot more athletic and he has the more skill than Jimmy Garoppolo to lead this team. So I'm very excited to see what the 49ers do. Talk to me about Trey Lance and that little quote and what that
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say one thing on that Trey Lance topic. Niner Sickness podcast brings it up. One thing Trey Lance alluded to in his presser last week was that finger injury that he sustained in the preseason against the Las Vegas Raiders actually was with him for the entirety of the season. And the first time he was fully healthy was actually in the offseason when he started training. So that actually piece of information, when you look back at the last couple of weeks, right? It kind of shows why the 49ers were hesitant in a way to start Trey Lance later in the year. It's not necessarily because they didn't trust his talent, but you don't want to hurt your investment, especially when you had a plan to have him redshirt his freshman year in a way. And so I can definitely I understood it before because I thought that Jimmy Garoppolo should have started last year based on the words of his former coaches, meaning Trey Lance's former coaches and all of that. But now I can understand why he didn't start towards the end of the year when Garoppolo was hurt, just because this injury really seemed to nag him and really alter his throwing motion. So that was something interesting to hear. But talking about what you said about Trey Lance, the maturity, the composure that your guy says that he's exhibited. I mean, everything that we've seen this offseason seems to allude to that. First, he brings the entire wide receiver core out for workouts back in Los Angeles earlier in the offseason. He continuously looks like he's working to refine his craft. We know he has the talent. We've seen it on tape with the arm strength and with the running ability and all that makes him a unique quarterback. But we also see the intangibles in a way, right? The things that we praised Jimmy Garoppolo so much for, we're starting to see develop out of Trey Lance. And that was the one question in a way that people had. Apart from the accuracy, that was the one question that people had. Can he lead this team after what Jimmy Garoppolo has done? Is the locker room going to be torn? And really, we've seen so many players back Trey Lance. We've seen how bonded and how united this locker room is. And that's a good sign heading into 2022 that there might not necessarily be any super hard feelings because of what their quarterback has become.
Did I lose you? You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. We're good.
Okay, you cut off. You cut off abruptly on me. My bad. So no, like as you're saying, right? So like I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So I knew about the injury when it first happened. I didn't know that it still affected him. Like I said, I've been pretty much gone.
Mhm.
To me, that's hilarious because there was two players that you and I have both talked about who have been injured and like the media doesn't talk about. And then I do know Elijah Mitchell's rehabbing his knee, right? He just got his knee scoped out and everything, or else he would have been at OTAs.
Yeah.
So you and but I remember everyone like, oh, his breakaway speed's not there. He played an entire season pretty much on a sprained knee, constantly
Mhm.
missing practice because of that knee. So that's a player who's injured, who a lot of fans that never went into consideration. The fact that Trey Lance is now all that's now coming into play or coming into light that his injury actually was more severe as a finger injury. And if you think about it, that's what controls everything to throw the ball. Like that's what gives you that accuracy, right? So for that to come out, it doesn't shock me that it comes out that it affected him longer than everyone thought. Like, oh yeah, as soon as it heals and he'll be fine to throw. If he doesn't take the job, it's because he's not good enough. Well, the biggest thing that Kyle Shanahan, like his very, 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 if he was to choose one trait, it's accuracy for him, right? He's going to
Mhm.
create guys to get wide open. It's just accuracy. If you're accurate, then he's going to love you. And if Trey Lance is lacking that accuracy due to that finger, he's not going to push him into the starting lineup. And one thing I do like is with what Trey Lance brings Kyle Shanahan, I saw in college that he was more accurate than people give him credit for, but it's the work ethic, right? So there's a video that I saw on Twitter a few days ago. It's a guy breaking down his throwing motion from last year and his throwing motion this year, and like you can see all the dots on it and everything, and you can see he's refined his throwing motion already in one summer. So imagine in 2-3 summers when 49er fans are hoping he gets better, right? Like 49er fans want everything right now. Like they want Trey Lance to be as good as Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen right now. That's not going to happen, right? It's going to take a few years of development. It's going to take all that process. Like you literally got to just trust the process. And with him in 2 years, you're going to see that process, that work ethic, that the reason they drafted him. So I'm excited about Trey Lance. I know everyone here is very excited about Trey area. That's the biggest thing. Um, what player from OTAs because I know you're paying attention to OTAs more than I am,
Yeah.
stood out that you're excited about? Because I have a player in mind that I'm very excited about to see through our OTAs and training camp.
I'll go with one because it leads in a way to a topic that I wanted to address, and that's Talanoa Hufanga. Out of all the safeties in the 49er group, Talanoa Hufanga right now is the starter. And Jimmy Ward came out and said earlier today, him and Talanoa Hufanga are the best safety duo in the NFL, in the entirety of the NFL. And if that doesn't shout praise for Talanoa Hufanga because of the way that Jimmy Ward and Jaquaski Tart were, if he's saying these things about Talanoa Hufanga, I have confidence that this safety unit is going to be better than I expected because I have been critical of the safety unit, and that's something that I wanted to hear. But really, what mattered to me, I don't necessarily care as much that Hufanga got the start because George Odom is learning. Oh, my bad, cut out. But George Odom learning a new playbook is his first year here. Then Tarvarius Moore coming off an ACL injury, right? But to see the confidence not only of him and then also reports that he's looking good, he's like, and he's smarter in a way. He's more like he knows the playbook better now, and he can use that instinctual ability of his to make an impact where his speed might be an issue. He can make up with that with instinct and just the smarts behind football. So that's a guy who I'm looking forward to in this training camp process. Can he sustain what he's been doing so far this offseason? And can he continue being the starter for the 49ers throughout training camp? Or will he be overtaken by one of the other safeties on the team right now?
See, I'm absolutely not shocked that Talanoa Hufanga is standing out. So he is a guy that I actually was hoping to see in training camp in OTAs, but that's actually not the guy who was actually a name. So you and
Okay.
I have both been pretty high on Hufanga, right? I thought he was going to be a starter this year. I didn't think they're going to bring back Jaquaski Tart because of Hufanga. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, Hufanga can't cover. Hufanga can't do this." Well, the thing is when you're in your rookie year and you're learning playbooks, you're learning these coverages, these new coverages that you didn't run in college for the most part, your mind is going at 100 miles per hour because you're trying to think on what's going on. So now that he's being able to just react, we're going to see how instinctive this guy is. He's in college, he was very instinctive playing near the box. So for us, we're going to be able to see Hufanga make plays in the pass game. As at the end of the season, we saw him make a play in the Green Bay Packer game. We saw him break up a pass on Devontae Adams. So we're going to see stuff like that throughout the season. But the player that I'm actually excited about to watch to see how he becomes integrated into this offense is actually Danny Gray. So I know it's an easy choice because he was just drafted in the third round pick, has the speed. But the reason why I'm very intrigued by him is because of the speed element. We haven't had that speed element in this offense as a deep threat or anything like that for a few years. The last guy we had that was a legit deep threat or a legit burner was Marquise Goodwin. And what Kyle Shanahan did with Marquise Goodwin, who, let's be honest, he wasn't the best receiver there was. He wasn't that good of a route runner and all that. But what he did with him and almost made him 1,000-yard receiver, a few yards away from 1,000 yards, was incredible. So imagine what Kyle Shanahan's going to do with a legit receiver like Danny Gray in open field. Like, that's where it excites me. And, like, I can't wait to see who lines up in the slot to cover Danny Gray. Like, who do they really put speed-wise on Danny Gray? Because that's where you're going to have matchup nightmares. You have speed. You have Debo, who he's going to be back. He won't be traded, which I thought he was. He won't be traded. And then you have Brandon Ayuk. So this and Juwan Jennings. So this is a legit receiver room. This is the best receiver room the 49ers have absolutely had since Kyle Shanahan has taken over. And that is what excites me.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And Danny Gray, I mean, we saw it also. There was a clip that originated over this past week. Jarvis Ward and Jimmy Ward both said, man, that guy got speed. He got them fresh legs, which means, 49er players are noticing that Danny Gray has that top end speed. And that is something that, like you said, they've lacked since Marquise Goodwin's been there in terms of just pure deep end speed, not acceleration, but just pure speed where you can get out immediately. And so I'm very interested to see how Danny Gray integrates himself. Will he solidify that fourth wide receiver spot by the time the start of the season comes? or will he be kind of integrated as the season goes on? That's something that I'm waiting to see, because he definitely provides something unique to this team, and with Trey Lance, his skill set should thrive, and so that is definitely an interesting thing. But really, it speaks to our wide receiver room that a guy like that is our fourth receiver, and not even, he doesn't even have to be the fourth. He can be the fifth receiver. I like it because last year we had Travis Benjamin, we had Trent Sherfield hitting the field for significant snaps. Now you can trust guys who just honestly are more talented than those two players and have more potentials, more to grow or more to show in Ray McLeod and Danny Gray on the field. And I think that that's important, because with injuries that occur, you need reliable options. You need to make sure your offense is still moving, especially with a young quarterback. And I like what they did with the wide receiver room this offseason.
So literally, when the 49ers drafted Danny Gray, so I know you know this song because you grew up, you're young. I take the top off. Is it a hot bop? You know what song I'm talking about? That's the first thing I thought about when I, and I'm not good with music. I don't really like music like that. Like, I'm not that big of a fan of music, but that's the first song that came to my head when Danny Gray was drafted by the 49ers. Is taking the top off. And for me, I have one question about Hufanga, because this was a serious conversation Hufanga and Jimmy Ward had, because I saw that video. Does he go Head and Shoulders, or does he go Old Spice for his shampoo deal?
That's a good question. That's a good question, because that hair is something else.
Because that was a conversation they were having, man. He was like, in that video, he goes, yeah, Head and Shoulders deal, and then he was like, nah, man, he should go Old Spice. So that's a very interesting thing, and I hope Hufanga gets that deal, because I know he trains with Troy Polamalu, who has that Head
Right.
and Shoulders shampoo deal. So we know he's going to get a shampoo deal eventually, real soon. But going into the 49ers, right? Their defense. So they just signed a few defensive guys, right? They signed um, the Komodo Dragon, Komoko Toure. They had picked up uh, Drake Jackson. That is a guy that I want to talk about, Drake Jackson. So the defensive line just got even better. Um, well, actually, before we even get to there, this is actually a good question. Do you think Hufanga will ever be a Pro Bowler? I don't think he'll be a Pro Bowler in year one or two, or year two or three. Um, Now, throughout his career, could he become a Pro Bowler? Absolutely, I think he can. I think he has the instincts and the IQ to become a Pro Bowler. But now, what the reason why I don't think, and it's not a bad thing if you're never a Pro Bowler in the NFL, because if we look at Jimmy Ward, right? Jimmy Ward has been good for quite a few years. Does he get the Pro Bowl? No, because Pro Bowl recognition isn't all about being good. It's about the votes, the fan votes, the media votes, and stuff like that. So if he doesn't become a Pro Bowler, there's nothing to worry about. Um,
Mhm.
I just want him to be a solid safety in the NFL, and I think that's what he can be. And I think the reason why he won't be a Pro Bowler and the fans won't vote him in, and the media won't vote him in, is because of that athleticism. Usually what they do is they the most athletic guys get a little bit more production, and I think that's what's going to keep him from being a Pro Bowler. But I could be wrong. He could eventually make a Pro Bowl, but I'm not too worried if he doesn't. What do you think on that, Rohan?
Yeah, I mean, to me, Pro Bowl is just an accolade. I don't really care, but if he can produce like a guy like Jimmy Ward has produced, I'd be very content with his career. And he doesn't even need to do that. If he can just be an average level starter in the NFL, that's good for me. If he can be what Jaquaski Tart has been for the 49ers over the last couple of years, that's good enough for me, because the 49ers, their defense, right, isn't predicated on their safeties. It's predicated on their defensive line. It's not like the safeties are the most important position on the field for them on the defense. So you don't need elite play. Obviously, elite play is amazing, but you don't necessarily need elite play. If Ufanga can just show that he can stick with the first unit and produce a season where he isn't burnt in coverage a good amount, he isn't like his instincts aren't wavering because he's young or something like that. If he can show growth from his first season to his second season, I'll be content.
And that's all you could ask for from the young guys, right? Get
Right.
better each year, because it makes the team better. The team was already a very good team, so I think he'll be fine. I think 49ers will be fine. But going into the Drake Jackson situation, right? Chris Kasarik had a very key quote. He is very athletic, and he is like a sponge. He's an athletic sponge. So I was talking a little bit about Drake Jackson about this situation. Are you still there, Rohan?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. Talk about Drake Jackson and how the athletic sponge, what it means to you.
Right. And I mean, when the 49ers drafted Drake Jackson, they love the traits, right? That's what John Lynch and all alluded to. Love the traits, the length, the size, and just the ability to move. Remember, Drake Jackson had a lot of weight fluctuation at USC, and while that was it was a curse in a way because he wasn't used properly, it also showcases athleticism at different facets of the field. And so when you put him as a true edge rusher, I think that his bend, his length, just his combination of traits is going to be beneficial. Now, for me, Drake Jackson, he isn't there at OTAs today, I believe, but how will he progress through this first kind of period in the offseason? Because obviously he put on a ton of muscle, he said, but he's in a way in a transition phase right now. He's going back to being a pure defensive end. His responsibilities are different. Obviously, Chris Kosaric, he's the defensive end genius, but I want to see, can Drake Jackson react quickly? Can he take over the opportunity early, or will it be later on in the season when he's integrated more with the offense? Defense. Because if he can react quickly and really take over a primary role, Samson Ebukam might be expendable. But if not, you might keep Samson Ebukam to wait because obviously the 49ers, they kind of budgeted for Ebukam on the roster, and he's shown to have solid flashes. So that's something I want to see. But if Drake Jackson can come along early, I want to see how many snaps that he can get in this first year.
So, Rohan, you're a little bit younger, but I don't know if you remember when the 49ers actually drafted Alden Smith and how they used him. So they used him. You remember how they used him as a situational pass rusher. So that's something I would love the 49ers to actually use Drake Jackson his first couple games and just give him the feel on what the NFL was like because he did take plays off, right? So you can't take plays off. That's a good thing of being around Nick Bosa. He's not the best run defender, which he has the ability to be a great run defender. He just doesn't do so. So I would definitely like to see them use him as a situational pass rusher. And then just let him gradually just take over because if the 49ers call on him to be that dude year one, you don't need him to be that dude year one. You have Nick Bosa, who's that dude. You have Kamoko Ture, who could take some pass rush reps. Samson Ebukam, who makes good money where towards the last 5 games of the season, he came on. So I don't think you move Ebukam because of that situation. Like, you want the
Right.
best defensive line you could possibly have. And for me, I think what the 49ers did edge-wise and Drake Jackson being a sponge, I would literally have him everywhere Nick Bosa goes, Drake Jackson has to be there. Like if Ebukam's lined up with Nick Bosa every rep, hey, just learn from Bosa. Learn the habits that Bosa has eventually once Bosa comes to mandatory camp and training camp because Nick Bosa's not there yet. So Drake Jackson is only learning from Chris Kosaric. Imagine when Nick Bosa gets there and Nick Bosa teaches him another move. That's where it's like, okay, is he really a sponge? Because a sponge is going to learn that move and he's going to master that move because he already has that speed edge dip that all he needs, right? The speed move. He also has a long stab arm. So whatever he could do, whatever Nick Bosa teaches him, that's where it's going to get fun. It's going to get enticing. Talk
Yeah.
to me, Rohan, a little bit about something else because I know you have other topics that you've been wanting
Yeah.
to discuss.
There are two guys, or not guys, but two positions that were interesting. We talked about safety and Hufanga, how we weren't necessarily surprised that he started, but the other guy, Darqueze Dennard, took the start in the slot. Are you surprised at that on the first practice? Were you surprised that Dennard took the starting spot at the slot? And what do you expect from the slot position in this offseason program?
So, to my knowledge, everyone's there in the secondary, right, for OTAs?
I believe a majority. I don't. I know Thomas was sick
Yeah, I
for
know.
this, but he's there today.
Yeah, I know Embry. I know Embry Thomas, but I believe he was. I'm in communication with some people who are connected to Embry Thomas, right? So I thought he was out. I didn't know it was sick wise, but I knew he was there. I expect the slot position to be either won by Embry Thomas or Denominal Lenore. The reason why I think the Nard is there is because of the veteran, the years he has under him. I don't think it's about the corner situation. I know they just drafted a young corner, Womack, who they believe could take over. To me, I'm not worried about Denard playing there right now. It's just OTAs. I think that nickel corner role will be won by Demo or Ambry Thomas. Has K'Wan Williams been signed yet? Because I know you know much more on that than I do right now.
Yeah, K'Wan Williams, he got a 1-year deal with Denver.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so I for sure I thought maybe hey they might bring him back or something, but I think Demo and Avery Thomas are going to end up competing for that spot. I think it'll end up going to Denominal Lenore. I think he's more suited for the nickel role. But I wouldn't be surprised if Avery Thomas wins it because he has that tenacity and he has the ability to play inside and outside. I think it's just a toss up for that nickel role. And right now, what they're doing is allowing the veterans to have that voice because at the end of the day, when you have a guy who's been in the league for a few more years, he has a little bit more wisdom, so he could share that wisdom with these younger cats. So that's what I'm excited to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Ambry Thomas, the main question will be, can he tackle well? One thing though that we saw today, I forget who, someone posted a picture today. He's put on a significant amount of muscle. And that's important because you want that guy in the slot to like last year. Ambry Thomas was pretty thin. He was like what, maybe 190. I'd assume he's around 200 now, which means he might be better suited for the slot. And it's nice to see that, right? Where he is bigger, obviously getting back into his frame from his college days. And now I think Thomas is good to roll. For me, I will be a little more passive on Deommodore Lenoir, and I'll tell you why. Last year, week 18, the 49ers signed Darqueze Dennard off the practice squad just a week and a half before that, off another team's practice squad, and he was implemented into the roster, right? He was the guy who got 32% of the defensive snaps in that week 18 game, played crucial snaps against the Los Angeles Rams in that clincher. Deommodore Lenoir did not play. Now, over this entire offseason, those are the two guys that have been with the team over the past year, right? Those are the two guys that have been in the building, and the 49ers preferred Dennard. Shanahan himself said he was surprised by Dennard. He liked what he saw from Dennard, and that's why he got the start over here last week in OTAs. And so to me, I don't know if Deommodore Lenoir is in the race to be, or I mean, it's not that he's in the race. I don't know if he should be considered one of the favorites, though, just because out of the guys in the building, it seems like the 49ers had a favorite, and that's why it was Dennard. Now, am I confident that Dennard is going to be the starter? No. The 49ers have multiple players who either were at a different position last year or who are new to the building. You've got the guys who we drafted in Samuel Womack and Tariq Castro Fields. I think Womack is the better suited guy to the slot, although he has played on the outside in early parts of training camp or OTAs and rookie minicamp. Then you also have Dante Johnson, who played at a significant amount of roles last year. He could see time in the slot. And then the guy you just said, Ambry Thomas, who played on the outside for the entirety of last year, he could move into the slot as well, alongside Jason Verrett, who could be cleared for training camp. And if he does show, he's got the slot build, 5'10", 180 around there. And if the 49ers like what they see out of him, then he could be over there starting in the slot as well.
So let me throw a name out there to you, Rohan, that I don't think has been mentioned to play the slot by many people, right? Coming into the NFL, he was very undrafted, started playing. He had reps in the slot. A lot of people like him in the slot. Emmanuel Moseley. So let's say the 49ers like Ambry Thomas outside. I mean, he showed some flash towards the end of the season. He added about 10 pounds of muscle. He's around 205, I believe. That's around the weight he's trying to play at. 205 is an ideal weight for him. So if he added that because the 49ers like smaller slot corners. They like to be able to blitz them, they like to do all this. Emmanuel Moseley is a guy who has experience in the slot with the 49ers, and he showed he could do so well. Emmanuel Moseley is also a very good outside corner. So that's why I'm just throwing this name out there because he's played it for the 49ers. So what would you say if Emmanuel Moseley ends up in the slot?
I would be somewhat disappointed. I honestly, at this point in their careers, I think Emmanuel Moseley is the second best corner on the team ahead of Jason Verrett just because of injury and because Verrett just will lose a bit of that athleticism every time he suffers one of these injuries. And to me, Moseley has shown consistency. Last year was a very underrated year for him where he allowed a passer rating of just 72, which was above average, where he allowed a completion percentage of just 56%, despite being targeted a solid amount. And he faced the likes of a guy like DK Metcalf, faced the likes of DeAndre Hopkins, and all these top tier receivers over there in the NFC West. And so to me, I'd prefer if Emmanuel Moseley was on the outside. If he moves to the slot, I think that shows a lack of confidence towards other options, and because I think that that would be a last case scenario where they don't have another guy who's shown flashes in the slot throughout the entire offseason, which means they needed another guy on the outside because guys like Castro Fields, maybe even Ambry Thomas are more experienced on the outside, so they might not show enough in the slot. So that's what I think about it. I wouldn't consider it to be like the number one option just because Mosley is also in a contract year. I'm sure he's not looking forward. It's not that he's not looking forward, but I think he'd probably prefer to play on the outside at this point in his career after what he showed last year. And also, I think that there are other options in the slot the 49ers might look at.
So let's check this out. So like the main thing is to get your best players on the field at all times, right? Like that's like number one key.
Right.
So if the 49ers think, for example, Jason Verrett is better suited outside than inside because of his injury history and all that, you are in the slot, you're gonna get banged up a little bit more, right? So if they prefer him to be in the outside, or they prefer Andrew Thomas outside, or to Castro Fields outside, would it makes sense to move a guy like Emmanuel Mosley into the slot, even though, yeah, it sucks that he won't get paid or he won't get that contract. But if we look at a guy, it's a guy who's very similar to Emmanuel Mosley. Rasul Douglas, who ended up getting a fairly nice deal with the Green Bay Packers.
50 million.
So, yeah, so he's getting a lot of run on the outside, and their biggest question is, okay, now where does Jair Alexander? And it makes no sense because this is Packer fans and Packer media saying, okay, well, where does Jair Alexander slot in when it's all said and done? Because you have Rasul Douglas, who was phenomenal outside last year.
You got Stokes.
Stokes outside last year was legit. They're saying that we might see Jair Alexander in the slot. And the reason why I don't mind throwing Emmanuel Mosley in the slot isn't because of Jair Alexander. I'm just throwing that out there because sometimes your best players end up in the slot a lot.
Right.
Look at Jalen Ramsey. He moved to that star role, and he's no longer that outside corner that he was. He's moving that star role and doing everything for the defense. So if you're the second best corner on the team, most of the time, a lot of teams like to line up their best receivers in the slot. We see Cooper Kupp in the slot a lot. Jamar Chase is in the slot a lot. So a lot of the best receivers that the 49ers are going to face are going to be lined up in the slot. So if you have a guy like Emmanuel Mosley in the slot, he's now matched up with some of the best receivers in the game. So even if he is in a contract year, you have a resume. You're playing the slot against these best receivers, and if you're locking them down, that resume speaks for itself. Yeah, last year on the outside, this year on the inside. Hey, I'm just a playmaker. Pay me what I am. So that I don't think that it would be too big of an issue. I would be shocked if he said no to the slot. But that's something I'm just throwing it out there as a name. Hey, he might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I wouldn't mind it, right? Do I think it's realistic? Not necessarily, but if Jason Verrett can come out and if he can ball like he balled before, right? I would definitely like. It's not like I wouldn't entertain it. I think that that would be a solid idea. And I mean, another guy that I'll throw out there, Dante Jackson of Carolina, has flexibility outside and inside. He got a contract this year that was pretty hefty. 3 years, $35 million, over 10 million a year. And if Emmanuel Mosley plays in a similar role, I don't know if the contract negotiations wouldn't necessarily hurt if he can still prove that he can play. And you're right, Mosley does have experience in the slot. Now, will it be week one that he starts in the slot? That's something that we have to see because I don't know if Verrett will be fully healthy by week one. Hopefully he gets cleared by then, but I'm not sure if he gets fully healthy by week one, meaning he might be put on some list or something like that so that the 49ers can carry an extra cornerback. So we'll see about all that.
So just as I'm scrolling through Twitter, a guy named Grant Kahn, who a lot of people might not like now because of the Javon Kinlaw situation, and they passes just now. One of them was dropped. So 10 of 13 passes is a good sign. He doesn't put any context whether they were the balls were being pushed down the field or whether he was checking it down. But it's a good sign because, like we just said earlier, the accuracy is there, then him completing the balls is there now. So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
But I want to read what I really wanted to read to you was a Huff quote. It's a quote from D'Amico Rance.
Go for
He
it.
goes, "This offseason has been eye-opening for me. To see the way Huff is communicating out there, louder, better. Huff definitely ascending in the right direction." What do you think when you hear the defensive coordinator speaking highly of the young safety?
That's a vote of confidence in my eyes. I mean, like the one thing that we wanted to see, how does his like mind in a way translate to the NFL? Because obviously, like you said earlier, rookies they can get overwhelmed. You don't necessarily want to take away too much from that rookie season from the guy of Huff's position, right? Where they're thrust in the spotlight, and a lot of players try and use their athletic skills early on before using their mind and like how their instinctual ability because it's what they can do, right? Huff now has that entire offseason under his book, studying film and doing all the football fanatics, and now he's ready. D'Amico Ryans has said it. Jimmy Ward has now said it. And that's just another vote of confidence to me that the 49ers are trending in the right direction at that position, despite not grabbing a safety in free agency, despite not re-signing Jaquaski Tart. It seems like they know what they have in their second-year safety, and they think that he can improve even more.
And I don't like to be this dude, but there's been a lot of guys on Twitter and social media who have been Huff fans, and they were very in spaces saying that they believed Huff was good enough to not bring Tart back or draft a safety. And I want to shout those guys out. I don't know if they're watching or not, but some of those guys are out there. I know you and I were both one of them, but there is guys. Roscoe's was definitely one of them. My guy Chris was definitely one of them, and I want to shout him out because he's been high on Hufanga since he was drafted. And when I remember when him and I were talking Hufanga, he was very, very high on him. So that's something that I want to shout out to those guys in the Twitter spaces with us who are credit needs to be given where credit is due because the credit isn't given a lot of times. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah, really.
So Trey is doing a great job. It's good to see him and his command of the offense. He's zipping it past a lot of us a lot. He is making it tough on us. Good to see him coming into his own as a leader. Said D'Amico Ryans by Jennifer Lee. So this is actually pretty damn cool because you and I get to talk about this live as these quotes are coming out. So it's one of those ones that's very interesting conversation. What does this mean? He is like, just talk to me about this quote. Make it easier.
Arm fatigue. What is arm fatigue? We just see this damn quote right here. Boy, he's zipping it past people, man. Ain't no such thing as arm fatigue. You hear it from D'Amico Ryans himself. That's what I wanted to say. Like, really,
Talk your shit, Rohan. Talk your shit, man.
All of these quotes just dispel the rumors that national media tries to put out there, right? That's why I think local media should be in coverage of the team because national media, oh, he's trying to get up to 50% on completion percentage. Well, guess what? Or like they're doing Shanahan specials and things like that. Well, guess what? Shanahan specials haven't been completed by other quarterbacks in the NFL. You see, what a Shanahan special is that Kyle Juszczyk wheel route. Guess how many times we've missed that throw? Guess how many times it's cost us games? Now,
right.
If completing Shanahan specials, I don't care if the pass is wide open. If other quarterbacks can't complete them and Trey Lance is completing them, guess what? I am totally okay with that. Now, we're looking good because we see the accuracy. We've seen it now in 2 straight practices in the sessions with Trey Lance. I like the accuracy because that was the main concern, right? 57% of his passes were completed in year 1, and that was with a finger injury. Look really at that 1 game sample size against Houston. 16 to 23, that's almost 70% of his passes completed, and it's not checkdowns. It wasn't short throws. It was for 248 yards, over 10 yards an attempt. That just shows the guy that Trey Lance is, and I understand it's a 1-game sample, but really everything that we saw from that 1 game has translated this entire offseason, and we've heard it from the coaching staff. This is the defensive coordinator whose own defense is getting torched, and he's willingly saying it because he's seeing what he sees right in front of him.
Hey, talk your shit, man. You use real now today, and I like it. So the funny thing is this isn't the first time that Trey Lance has done this, man. Do we not remember last year when he was with the practice squad and Jimmy Ward came on out of nowhere? Like Jimmy Ward and Fred Warner both came onto the podium. They're like, yeah, Trey Lance just torched us. I had to tell him to tone it down so we could get some practice reps. Like the fact that these dudes were saying this last year, right? They're saying it from the practice squad. Like he was using practice squad receivers.
Exactly. Like you saw the clips. That goddamn, what is his name? River Craycraft? I forget his name.
No. If we're gonna credit the guy, we gotta credit the right guy. I gotta find him. I follow.
Not his name.
It's Connor Weddington, I believe.
Okay, Connor Weddington. Actually, respect.
Yeah.
Stanford alumni, respect Connor Weddington. But yeah.
But like the thing is, like he did it last year with the practice squad receivers. I'm not shocked he's doing it with legit receivers. Like he's doing it with Brandon Ayuk and these dudes. Like, why are we shocked that he's doing this? And to me, yes, the big time media can say whatever the hell they want, like Trey Lance said. I don't care what they say. We don't care. 49er RedZone does not care what big time media says. All right, don't listen to them. Let's actually focus on what we're actually being fed by the actual media personnel that it is in attendance. They're in attendance, right? So we can't be seeing that quote. It just like it literally puts a fire in me. Like the fact that these dudes were saying arm fatigue, 19 games. I had someone text me, "Oh, he's 19 games under his belt in college, only 300 pass attempts." Dude, Trey Lance don't care, man. He don't. And neither should 49er fans, man. It's time. We finally got a quarterback in our offense. Y'all should be excited. Stop the bickering about Trey Lance still being on the roster, Jimmy Garoppolo still being on the roster with Trey Lance under center. It's time. Like I should not see. Like honestly, from here on out, Jimmy Garoppolo is should not be said on this podcast because Trey Lance is the future. He's the guy. He's the now. He's the present, the future. That's the dude, man. It's exciting. It's very exciting, Rohan.
Yeah, most definitely. And one thing, speaking on the quarterback situation, I think it's the first time where I've heard, like, we've talked about all these little things like Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch try and sidestep what they're doing with Garoppolo, right? Like earlier, the first thing was like we like what in February, I think it was Feb 26th, I remember the date. Lynch was talking with Mayoko and he said we've budgeted for Garoppolo on the roster, right? And then it slowly goes away from that, in that we expected to trade him. The injury halted everything. And then last week, what did Kyle Shanahan say about the quarterback situation? I expect Jimmy Garoppolo to be traded. If not, we'll think about it or something like that. But it's really the first time where I heard that he straight up said it. He didn't use any like fluffy language or anything. He just straight up said, "I expect Jimmy Garoppolo to be traded." Like, and so to me, that like I don't understand how people don't view that as a clear indication of their quarterback plans. But yeah.
So it's very exciting. So I know you and I we've been wanting to talk for a little while about the 49ers schedule, right? And if you see anyone tweet or anyone in the comments sees anything about the press conferences, because press conferences today they're not broadcast or anything. So if you see any of the media personnel that is there in attendance or they're saying anything, drop it in the comments. Rohan and I have been wanting to talk a little bit about the 49ers schedule. And this is actually the first time I've actually looked at the 49ers schedule because, to be honest, the schedule has not been important to me. I had a lot more important issues like school stuff. So, Rohan, I know you have opinions on the schedule. I'm going to take a look at it right now as we're talking. Week 1, I don't even know who the heck we're playing. Let me go ahead and look.
We're playing Chicago in Chicago for week 1.
Dub. That's a dub.
Yeah.
The 49ers defense is too good for a second year Justin Fields, and the 49ers offense is going to be even better. They have a new head coach. They have a new everything, new system and everything. So their first week they're going to struggle a little bit. The 49ers are going to get in there. They should win by 10 points. That's my opinion. So 1-0 to start the season. I don't what you think.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, one thing I want to say about the Chicago Bears, like normally you see these rebuilding teams. This is something I said. Normally you see these rebuilding teams get better every year, right? We saw the Jets. We saw so many teams get better. Chicago Bears got worse. They lost 3 of their best players, and they lost a head coach. They're going into a new head coach. And so offensively, their number 1 receiver was Allen Robinson. He's gone. Defensively, Khalil Mack, they traded him away. Akeem Hicks, they let go. And right now, we don't know what's going on with their cornerback situation because Jalen Johnson, their guy from the last 2 years, is playing with the twos. So really, that team, we don't know what their vision is right now. This should be a win for the 49ers. And honestly, despite it being a rookie quarterback, this would be embarrassing if we lost, just specifically because we have a good defense.
So you think that's a 1-0, right?
Yeah.
Just to be clear. So 49ers media, Ayuk and Juice were the only established starters on offense practicing with Trey Lance today, per Chris Biederman. And I wonder how many starters were on defense because I know Fred Warner's not there. Defense probably only had Mosley, Charvarius Ward, and Jimmy Ward, and Hufonga, so that's 4. They probably had Arik Armstead, but the defensive line really isn't doing anything yet. So they probably only had those.
Yeah,
so that doesn't matter.
You don't have Al-Shaair, you don't have Fred Warner, you don't, right? I guess you have Hufonga out there too. So yeah, those 4.
So and it's going to be way different when you have guys like Fred Warner there and stuff like that. But he is going up against a starting secondary essentially, so that's all that really matters to me. Like the 49ers secondary is a starting caliber secondary. Jimmy Ward, Hufonga, Charvarius Ward, and Emmanuel Mosley will all be starting most likely in that secondary at some point in the season. That's what it tells me.
Right.
Week 2, who the heck do we play? Let's go ahead and check. The Seattle Seahawks at home.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think finally we're going to get over the Seahawk curse. This should be a win in my books. Coming back home, we play Seattle. Yeah, I mean this in a way it's the best way to start the year, right? You get 2 pretty simple games. You get a home game for Trey Lance, and Seattle right now, like their defense is also a little discombobulated because they lost DJ Reed, they lost Bobby Wagner, 2 key cornerstones in both their secondary and their and their linebacker group. And then on top of that, offensively, they lost Russell Wilson, they lost Dwayne Brown, their left tackle, their pass protector, and their top quarterback. Chris Carson, we don't know if he's returning. He had a neck injury, and we don't know if he's going to actually return to the NFL. So really, their core pieces are all gone, and 49er fans shouldn't be any more sad with the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, I'm excited for that game. I know a couple Seahawks fans who all they do is talk. That's all they do is talk. And when they lost Russell Wilson, I sent them a text message, and that text message said, period. All it said was a period. I didn't say nothing else. No words, just a period. And that's the game I'm excited for because they have Drew Lock and Geno Smith as their quarterback. And Nick Bosa is going to tear those dudes apart, especially if it's Drew Lock. So that's 2-0 starting the season. That's a great sign. Great sign to start the season with a young quarterback like Trey Lance. You could even run the ball, establish the run game, establish a foundation on offense with these 2 teams. And once you get that establishment of offense, if your offense going, I mean, that's all you really want. You want to establish your offense, get going, and then as you start playing better teams, that foundation is there to be able to get going. Week 3, we're at the Denver Broncos, which is honestly, the Denver Broncos are a hell of a team. Their defense is stacked. Their offense is very good. They have a lot of weapons. They have a good run game. They picked up Russell Wilson. I'm going to say something, though, that I think might be very interesting because I don't think their defense is going to be as good as it was because they just lost Vic Fangio, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Vic Fangio is actually in the 49ers building every once in a while. He's helping the 49ers out a little bit. So Vic Fangio knows the weaknesses of that defense. He's the one who created that defense. He built that defense. Right? So we're going to see a much different defense. They have Bradley Chubb, their main pass rusher. So if he goes up against Trent Williams will take him off the game. Their secondary is pretty solid, but I think that's going to be a very tight game. It's in Denver. I think the 49ers come away with a 2-point victory, and I think they start off the season 3-0, but that's a toss-up. They could end up being 2-1. That is a very good team at the end of the day. So if the 49ers could make it a competitive game, I'd be excited because the Denver Broncos should be competing for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in that Denver is a much improved team, right? Upgraded at nearly every important position: quarterback, They upgraded in the secondary. They got some of our guys upgraded on the defensive line with DJ Jones and secondary with Kwan Williams, two of our guys. But when you look at it just schedule wise, I penciled this in as a loss. The Denver Broncos and the 49ers, this is their first big match of the year, really, for both teams. It was similar to last year where the 49ers had two fairly easy opponents in the first 2 weeks before playing Green Bay at home on a primetime game. Now, for the Denver Broncos, so we play the Bears and then the Seahawks. The Broncos play the Seahawks and then the Texans in their first 2 weeks. However, the Broncos are at home in week 2. They remain at home in week 3. So they're going to be adjusted to that high altitude and mile high. The 49ers have to travel from San Francisco or Santa Clara to Denver. That's one of the reasons why I do believe Denver might come away with this more adjusted to the weather, more adjusted to the altitude, and also their roster is very good. I have them penciled in as a loss.
And it's going to be a tight game. Like I don't think it's going to be a 10-point victory like I think week 1 is. I don't think it'll be a 10-point victory like week 2. But it's going to be one of those games where when you're a team and like that fatigue factor does kick in a little bit, but we also got to realize that Niners are going to have fresh legs. Oh yeah, they did pick up Tom Compton, but I'm glad they did. I'm glad a team picked them up. But so it all depends, like you're saying, fatigue, right? And I think the 49ers are going to have a fresh enough legs to go into Denver and actually steal a win. But that's in a game that's, like I said, a 2-point win, if not a toss-up. And that toss-up can end up being home field advantage, get swings a 3-point game. So I think that money line will be like 3 points, a 3-point spread at most in favor of Denver Broncos. So start off the season we'll just say 2-1, 3-0. That's a fairly great start. Week 4.
Yeah, real quick before we go to week 4, there are a couple of factors, right? For that could obviously ultimately change the outcome of this game. Russell Wilson, how coordinated is he with his teammates early in the season? And Jerry Jeudy, we don't know if the NFL is going to take action on his situation.
So that's a very big factor too, because without Jerry Jeudy, their receiving core does go down a little bit because they have Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton. So it is a toss up. But then week 4 they go straight to Los Angeles, right? We go straight to LA.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a break because you come back West Coast. You come back.
You played at home, but we play Los Angeles. Yeah.
Oh, so we're at home. So that changes things, right? Because Justin Herbert versus Trey Lance is going to be a hell of a game. Should be fun. 2 young, exciting quarterbacks. Now the thing is the freaking Chargers just stacked up on offense, man. Like they picked up another running back in the draft. They picked up another receiver in the draft. Man, that team is exciting. They're led by a young head coach, a young quarterback. I think the 49ers dropped that game. I do think they drop. I think they take Denver, and I think they drop the Chargers game. So the reason why I think they drop Chargers is because I think Justin Herbert going into year 3 is going to make that leap where he shows like the dominance in the NFL and he finally learns to be an NFL quarterback and not put the ball in harm's way. But if he shows to be the quarterback that he has been in the past, I think the 49ers could take away the ball a few times from him and that offense. And that's where it could get interesting because the 49ers defense in the day is still going to be a top 10 defense, top 5 defense, which makes life hard on every team we play. The 49ers are going to be in the game as long as their offense does their job. But I do think the Chargers sneak away a win.
Yeah. So week 4, we play the Rams, right, at home. This will be a very interesting game because it's the first game.
Oh, it's the Rams. Oh, yeah, I thought it was the Chargers. My bad.
I thought you skipped ahead because of the bye week, but no, Chargers is week 10. The Rams we play in week 4. But it is good knowledge on that Chargers things because for the Rams, right, we do play this one at home. It will be an interesting game. We come back at home. I have this penciled in as a win. This is, I believe, a Monday night football game. So this will be an interesting. I think it's another tough battle where Trey Lance has to face off against Matthew Stafford. It's going to be a pretty tough environment. Despite being at home, it's one of the better teams. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl last year. I do think, though, the 49ers come away with a win following the bounce-back loss against Denver.
See, I think they will beat Denver, and I think they play such a good team in the Los Angeles Rams. I think they fall to the Rams, right? You have Matthew Stafford on the other side. They have a very good offense. They have a very good defense. Their defense is a little bit weak because they lost a few guys. end of the day, I still think they're gonna have a good defense because of Aaron Donald. Man, I don't know. It's gonna be a very close game because you don't have Von Miller, so that pass rush you could honestly send a double team at Aaron Donald all game, and you could be fine, because that pass rush is not scary. Now where it gets me worried is offensively. That Rams team is one of the best offenses in the NFL, so they could put up points.
And
I
Matthew
think they
Stafford
lose.
put under pressure as well. That's the one thing because we're probably going to pressure him a good amount with that. After they lost Whitworth and a couple of starters, and I believe Austin Blythe, and then the guy that went to Cincinnati. I'm forgetting his name. I forget off the top of my head, but still, yeah, Austin Corbett. Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a tough game. I think the 49ers fall to the Rams. Actually, I do think they fall to them one time out of the year. I don't know if it's at home or we're in Levi South or whatever. But I do think the 49ers are going to get one from them. They get one from us. We're going to split that series. And I think the 49ers might fall to them earlier in the season only because a young Trey Lance, you could do a lot of things and disguise things. And I think that's where like Trey Lance actually has his slip up and Jalen Ramsey gets a hold of one and that's where it gets interesting. So I think the 49ers start the season 3-1. Oh, my guy Wayne Breezy's up in the house.
Yes, sir.
I think we start the season 3-1, and then going into week 5, Carolina Panthers. I think that's going to be an easy dub. I don't think Carolina's that good at all. Their quarterback will probably be a rookie quarterback at the time we play them, and I don't think a rookie quarterback is going to beat the 49ers defense when they're playing very well. So I think the 49ers are going to start 3-1, and they'll go 4-1 right off the bat. So they're already about halfway to the win total that all these sport bettors have them at.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think this is a win as well. I think Carolina is an underrated roster. It's just the quarterback situation is something that they've struggled with over the last couple of years during the Matt Rule era. Honestly, I can see us like as bad as it sounds for 49er fans, I could definitely see us dropping both games against the Rams. I still believe we'll go 1-1, but I could see both games we could drop against the Rams just given the situations around them. But at the moment, with the Chargers win, I have them at 4-1 as well.
Falcons. And Falcons again, they're going to be Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter should be running that offense. He should be running the show. Is my mic muted? I thought I unmuted. Mike, can you hear me?
You're good. You're muted.
Okay, yeah. Muted. So I think that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be led by Desmond Ritter. That team isn't all their best receivers is Drake London, a rookie. You take away him. Their tight end Kyle Pitts is pretty solid. I think that's going to be a win. So that's 5-1 to start the season. And then that's when people are going to start like, oh my God, Trey Lance is legit. Trey Lance is real. Oh my God, look what the 49ers did with Trey Lance by sitting him year 1. Look what he did. Like, and it's going to be like, the 49ers fans are going to be like, bro, we told you guys so. Like, why don't y'all listen? And we're going to have to talk to them calmly because, when you yell at people sometimes, it doesn't go through. So sometimes you have to just talk to them like they're younger, right? So I'm going to talk to them like they're a 5-year-old and explain to these other fan base fans that we've been trying to tell them this. So 5-1, what do you think on that, Rohan?
I actually agree. I think it is 5-1. I think despite it being an away game, we spend 2 times away, Carolina and Atlanta. So I don't think that travel should be much of an issue. Atlanta is not a good roster. Carolina, I think, is better than them. Atlanta is a roster that is struggling all around. Skill position players, Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson. You don't have anybody else other than that, really, that has been proven in the NFL. Quarterback is a huge question mark. Offensive line is improving, but it's still somewhat struggling. And then defensively, they don't have many key cornerstone pieces. Deion Jones is out for the year. So you really only have A.J. Terrell. You have a couple of guys on that defensive line with Grady Jarrett, but you don't have too many pieces there that are that can compete with how our team is structured. So I do think this is a win, and I think this should be a fairly easy win as well.
So going into the next week, they have a very tough opponent, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they fall to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are still a good team. People are going, oh, they lost Tyreek Hill. They picked up Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Justin Ross is going to be a lot better receiver than most people think. He was a guy I was texting, my boy David Lichty. I text him, around the sixth round. Like I would not be mad. It was even the fifth. It might have been the fifth end of the fifth round. I would not be mad if they took Justin Ross here. I understand the injury concerns and I understand all that, but those are guys when the talent is there, you could actually take the risk in drafting one of those guys later in the draft. So Justin Ross, Juju Smith, they picked up Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So they still have speed. They still have good weapons. Travis Kelce. I think that's going to be a loss. 49ers will be 5-2 at that point with a tough opponent coming up the following week.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, like their schedule is no slouch. They have really, really tough opponents for the first 9 weeks. I believe they're the only team in the NFL with 9 straight opponents in the first 9 weeks of teams that are above 500. I think all of these teams might have even made the playoffs last year or were close to it. So
Damn.
they're coming off a tough stretch. They played Buffalo and Las Vegas at home the 2 weeks before, but I still do think that they come in with a win because of their tough schedule. I think they're already in playoff intensity by week 7, and they also get a bye week in week 8. They want to finish their stretch strong. And the 49ers, they're traveling cross country, and it is really a huge test. Trey Lance versus Patrick Mahomes. You know how Mahomes makes things work. So I wouldn't be surprised if we won the game, but I do think that this is a loss, dropping us to 5-2.
I also have so we have it's interesting. We have a 5-2, but we had two different. Our losses came at different times. You had them losing to the Denver, and then I had them losing to uh,
The
the
Rams.
Rams. So the 49ers end up playing the Los Angeles Rams this time around. Um, they could end up losing. I think we could drop them down to 5-3. But I think one of the games they split. So at this point, either way, if they split, if they take the game at home, if they take the game, they're going to be 5-3 roughly. Or no, yeah, 5-3, right? No, do we have them at
You're at
6?
6-2, and yeah, 6-2.
Yeah, so one of the games they're going to win. So whether they lose the first game or whether they lose the second game, will be 6-2, which is a great record going into the bye week. They could be, and the thing is, they could be 5-3 going into that bye week, which is still a hell of a spot to be because
Yeah.
you're getting a bye week mid-season and you get a good long stretch ahead of you. So
Yeah, definitely. I do have this penciled in as a loss. The Rams, their bye week is in week 7, and then they get a home. Like they have a nice home stretch. They play Dallas at home in week 5, Carolina at home in week 6, have a bye week in week 7, and then San Francisco at home in week 8. So I do think that they're going to be well rested, and they're also not traveling as much. The 49ers have to travel from Kansas City, a tough opponent, to play the Rams over there in Los Angeles. I think that they're just the better rested team at the time, and just schedule wise, I think that's why the Rams win this game.
so we both have the same record going into the bye week, right? 6-2, or you have 5-3.
I'm at 5-3, and you're at 6-2.
So 6-2 going into the bye week. The 49ers end up seeing week 10 the Los Angeles Chargers. I think they beat the Chargers, and especially knowing that it comes off a bye week, you have more time to plan. You have more time to attack them. I mean, I think this one's going to be an interesting game, only because, like I already said earlier, Justin Herbert factor and all that. So I won't go too much into this one, but I think that we'll go 7-2 after week 10, and that's where things get really interesting going down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm a little more pessimistic in a way. I do think the Chargers are one of the, even though that they've been so good, just because of their past struggles, I think they're still a little underrated. I think if Brandon Staley can improve as a head coach, I think that they are in contention this upcoming year. They have a bye week in week 8. They still travel. They face Atlanta on the road, and then they come all the way to face San Francisco while we're on a bye week. But I do think the Chargers win this game. I think their roster is very talented on both sides of the field, and really their run defense I thought improved this significantly this past offseason. They added Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day, two pretty good defensive tackles, and then they also added Khalil Mack. So I think that their rotation of defensive linemen, especially on the interior, has improved, and that might be a struggle when we're trying to get our run game up.
So you have them at 5-3, and I have them at 7-2 going
Yeah.
into its week
Yeah, so
10,
we're going
11.
into week 11. Yeah, so you're 7-2, and I'm 5-4. Yeah,
So we're at Arizona Cardinals on Monday night. I think they fall to the Arizona Cardinals, which makes them 7-3, in Arizona, which isn't a bad thing because Arizona Cardinals are a very good team. It's going to be a three-team race for the NFC West between us, Arizona Cardinals, and the definitely not Seattle Seahawks, the Los Angeles Rams. So that'll be interesting. I think they fall to Arizona Cardinals. They're a good team. They picked up speed on offense. Their defense should be semi-solid. But the thing is, it's towards that start where does Cliff Kingsbury start? Does this team start falling apart after Week 10 like it usually does? Does it start going downhill from there? I think they sneak one out Monday night, especially because they're at home. They get that home crowd advantage, and I believe it is in Mexico, is it not?
Yeah, in Mexico.
So they're gonna have technically they're not gonna have that home field advantage, but they're gonna have 49ers probably have more fan base in Mexico City. But I think they sneak one out in Mexico City. That's where Kyler Murray puts his shine on a little bit more than Trey Lance, that veteran experience as a quarterback. And 49ers fall to 7-3, which is not a bad start.
Yeah, it's not. I do think that the 49ers actually win this game. The Cardinals, they're in a tough stretch. Their bye week is only in week 12 or week 13. 11 straight weeks of football, especially with their team. I think it is tough. The 49ers will be the more rested team. And while it's an away game, like Breezy says, it's at a neutral site in Mexico where the 49er fan base is actually pretty strong. And so to me, I think it might even feel like a home environment. The altitude it could be an issue, but I think since both teams face that, I don't view it as that big of a factor overall. I think that this is a win. The Cardinals, they're an interesting roster, right? You lose DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6-7 games. They're going to have him back, but I do think that it might still be in the integration phase in a way. So it'll be interesting. I think that the 49ers are just the better rested team at this point. That's why I have this penciled in as a win.
And I know we have a couple of actually listeners from Mexico, so Viva Mexico cabrones. So pretty much all I said was, you guys, everyone knows what I said. Rather not translate it because some people might be offended by cabrones, which is not too bad of a word. So New Orleans Saints, Sunday, November 27th, we're actually at home. So the Saints are a very interesting team, right? Very interesting team. They're led by Jameis Winston. They just picked up Chris Olave. Their draft was very, I guess, Chris Olave heavy. They traded a lot of things. They moved a lot of pieces for Chris Olave to pair him with Michael Thomas. That defense is phenomenal. The defense is very good. But I think that is going to be a win because of Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston throws 2 interceptions that game, one to Charvarius Ward. And I think this is a game where Lufonga makes a statement and has a very big interception in clutch time. I shouldn't even say clutch time, but I'll say late third quarter. Lufonga makes an interception that puts the 49ers ahead by a good enough margin for us to win that game. So they go 8-3.
Yeah, I like it. I think the Saints are a very good team, especially defensively. Defensively, I think they're an extremely very good team because they really kept a good portion of their roster while also adding 2 top tier safeties in Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May. I think they're both above average safeties. So they now have a new safety core to complement their pretty strong cornerback core with Lattimore, Paulson Adebo, and Bradley Roby over there. So I think that team is pretty good. Offensively, though, they lost Teron Armstead. I think that that's important. Additionally, the Saints only have their bye week in week 14. They have a really tough stretch from week 8 onwards, facing Las Vegas. They face Baltimore, and then they face the Rams, and they face the 49ers in 4 of those 5 games. So I think that that's important to factor in. I do think that this will be a tough stretch for them, while we are more fresh in a way because our bye week was a couple weeks earlier. I do think we're the better roster overall, like top to bottom on both sides of the football. So I'll pencil this in as a win as well.
So that's 8-3 for me. You have them at 7-4, right? Or
I believe 7-4.
7-4 headed into Miami at home. So December 4th, I believe. Because I know that for sure. I know that game for sure because my brother-in-law, he's a Dolphins fan, and I told him that I didn't have to take it to them. That's in my opinion. I think the Dolphins they have a solid foundation. They have a solid team. Where they lack is they have a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa, right? They have everything else there. They have the receivers. Their run game will be there. They have a solid defense with guys at every level on that defense. Now, like I told my brother-in-law, the Miami Dolphins are like the 49ers because of the situation that they have all the weapons, receivers, running backs, defense, but their quarterback is very similar to Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion. Can't make every throw. He's a good leader, a good dude, but he's just on the field, he's not going to be that quarterback. And I think that's the reason why the 49ers end up beating them because of Tua Tagovailoa. He kind of can eliminate what he can do and force him to do stuff that he can't. And I think the 49ers win that game and they go on to 9-3, which is kind of crazy because the Niners are 9-3 at this point. This is the first time I've looked at the schedule due to school in the previous couple of weeks. I have not looked at the schedule at all. So 9-3 is a great start to the season.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I also think this is a win. Miami Dolphins are a pretty strong roster, and I think they are close to competing. I don't know if they are right now, and the reason is purely their offensive line. I think their offensive line is pretty weak outside of Teron Armstead. They brought in Connor Williams, who has led the league in holds before, holding penalties. Their right side of the offensive line, though, is especially weak. Michael Dieter, Robert Huntley, and Eichenberg, it's either unproven options or really average to below average options. And with the defensive line like the 49ers have, they're going to put pressure on Tua Tagovailoa. And the one thing that Tagovailoa hasn't really shown is how well he can perform under pressure. He's done well with the clean pocket, but under pressure, that's where a good amount of his flaws have come out. And the 49ers are going to put pressure on him with the way that their team is shaped on the defensive line. So really, that's the main reason why I think the 49ers win this game, and I have them at 8-4.
So 8-4, 9-3 is definitely not a bad start. Before we keep going, there's actually a few comments in here that I really like.
Let's go
So
for it.
there's one from Talanoa Hufanga about Trey Lance. The dude can sling the rock. I'll tell you that. That's from Tracy Sandler. So then we also have, I think, my boy Wayne Breezy will be at the New Orleans Saints game, which is a hell of a thing. We have my guy Scoot Booty. Imagine that. 49er fan base is strong in Mexico City. It absolutely is. There's Wayne. There's Wayne saying he'll be at the Saints game. Another comment from 49er throwback. Aaron Banks said he spent the offseason working with the 49ers strength and conditioning coach. The result, his body fat percent is lower and his stamina is higher. That's from Matt Barrows. And then we have, he said he's even quicker as well this spring. Banks has lined up at left guard thus far. Then we have one more for 49ers throwback. Trey has been tremendous. Being a rookie with him was awesome. Getting to see him, his insight as a quarterback and what he can do on the field is outstanding. Love to go against that competition. That's from Hufanga. So we saw some good comments in there. Talk to me, Rohan, on what those comments actually signify to you and what they mean.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about the Trey Lance comments earlier, right? His teammates, especially the defensive ones, the ones who have to deal with his wrath, are praising him, praising the hell out of him because of the player that he is. To me, I like the Aaron Banks comments the most. That because last year we heard, oh, he came in, he was injured, then he wasn't necessarily at the weight the 49ers wanted to put him on or wanted him to be at. He cut weight last year, and then on top of that, he spent the entire offseason working out with the strength and conditioning coach. It seems like getting in shape is really important to him. Lower body fat, higher stamina, that fits well with our system. We want those agile linemen to be out in the run scheme. And so that's important to me, especially because he's been quicker. Because if he can keep the pass protecting prowess that he showed at Notre Dame while also being the agile version of himself or the agile version that he's coming to be, I think that shows the best way or best kind of sides of both worlds. So that's what I'm interested about Aaron Banks, how that translates to the field.
So David Lombardi just tweeted, Aaron Banks confirmed that 49ers O-line coach Chris Foster shared. He's still about 330, but has worked a lot of fat to muscle. Banks says he has much greater stamina, and then the rest was pretty much what we read earlier. So that's good to hear from Aaron Banks' perspective and all that stuff, and seeing him take over that left guard role, which is going to be a young interior offensive line. I think the left guard, right guard, potentially center could all be young guys. So that's going to be another thing we have to deal with.
Right.
So Miami, 49ers, we'll go back to this to schedule. Sorry, Rohan, threw you off right there. So we have them at 9-3 and 8-4 headed into Tampa Bay. I think the 49ers lose to Tampa. All the narratives are going to be Tom Brady and wanted to be a 49er. Tom Brady grew up a 49er. We all know the deal. I think they lose to them. So I think the 49ers fall 9-4. And it's a good team you're playing. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a tough matchup. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had their bye week in week 11. They're going to be a little more rested. They're also a strong roster. They could compete to be the 1 seed in the NFC West all in total. So I think that this roster is good. I do think Tampa Bay comes with the win, despite it being at home and despite us being on a little bit of a home streak here with the last 3 games. But it'll be tough. And I think if the 49ers can win this one somehow, it'll be a huge surge of confidence heading into this last stretch of the year.
So you have them winning this one or losing this one?
Losing this one, 8-5.
So you have them 8-5. I have them around 9-4, which is still it's around. So their over under on wins, I believe, is at 9.5. So like the
Wow.
rest of the season dictates a lot of bets. But the thing is they're favored to win more than 9 games. So it's
Yeah.
actually the betting odds favor people betting less than 9 games or betting 9 games and less. So that's what's interesting to me. So now we're after I think they lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they get to rewrite everything on Amazon Prime Video. So make sure you guys have Amazon Prime Video to watch the Thursday night game against the Seattle Seahawks, who I think they command, and they beat up on the Seahawks for a second time in a year, which 49er fans haven't seen in a very, very long time. So the 49ers moved to 10-4 per my prediction. And I'm guessing you're going to think they beat the Seattle Seahawks too, so I want to hear what you say.
Yeah. So when we were talking about the schedule a few weeks ago, people asked me, what are my trap games for the year? And I actually highlighted this game as a potential trap game for the 49ers, and I'll tell you why. This is a Thursday night game. It's on short notice, and the 49ers play the Buccaneers, a tough opponent the week before. On top of that, they have to travel to Seattle to face the Seahawks in the cold weather, that is, as well. The Seahawks in the week before, they face the Carolina Panthers on a Sunday night. Then they stay at home to face the 49ers. So they're more adjusted to the weather. They're more adjusted to the travel. And Kyle Shanahan has alluded to how that those Thursday, like the Thursday games, that travel period can be hard for the team. On top of that, I think the 49ers, like in 2019, remember, we lost to the Atlanta Falcons, one of those trap games as well, where it was like we overthought that game. We lose 29-21, and that was a home game as well. The Falcons were 4-9 at the time. The 49ers were one of the best teams in the NFL, and we end up dropping that game. That was an unexpected loss. I think this Seattle game could potentially be that. Now, am I going to go with the loss here? No. I think the 49ers roster is just too good for us to lose this game. However, I wouldn't be surprised at this specific game if we lost.
So the next game is actually I see is more of a trap game than that game, which is Washington, right? Because Washington is a solid team. They have a good defense, a good run game. They got better at the quarterback position. They picked up Carson Wentz. They picked up another receiver. I believe this draft. I believe they picked up another. I have to double check. But they have Terry McLaurin. They have Dynami Brown. The Washington Commanders are gonna. I shouldn't say upset the 49ers because the 49ers will probably be favored in this game. So it's still weird to say Washington Commanders. What the heck? Like I actually like I actually like the Washington football team, but they're gonna upset the 49ers, which drops them in my prediction to 10-5, which is not bad because I think the 49ers should be around 12-5, 12 or 11-6. So that's definitely a good sign for what the 49ers have in store for the entire season. So what do you think on Washington Commanders?
I think that this game is a win, and I'll say why. The 49ers, right, that Thursday game, that's played on Thursday, then they have an extended break, right? The 49ers play only next Saturday on the 24th, Christmas Eve, against the Commanders at home as well. So they have time, the travel is less, and they have an extra time to take care of their bodies. Meanwhile, the Commanders play the Sunday before at home against New York, against the Giants, and then they travel cross country on a short week, only 6 days instead of 7, to face the 49ers. So I think the conditions are just more favorable for the 49ers at this point in the year. I also think 8-5, or now they're 9-5. I think this is the time where that division race becomes a little more important, and I think the 49ers are going into this game with a mentality as well, alongside their additional rest. I have this penciled in as a win.
I did not realize it was a Thursday night to a Saturday game. That kind of changes things a little bit because, like you said, you do have that extra. And I have not seen anyone schedule. That's why it's funny. like doing this the first time looking at the schedule. Normally, what I would do is I would study the schedule. I would study the opponents that were playing, their schedules, and when every team, like you've been, oh yeah, they're coming off a bye week that week, or they have a bye week the following week, so they're going to be banged up. So it's interesting that you know all this, and I'm just like way like 10, 20 years behind right now. So they're like you said, they travel cross country. I didn't know the Washington Commanders travel cross country to see us after that and going into that game. I didn't know that the Washington Commanders had a tough little break that at that time coming to San Francisco. I thought it was at Washington, so I thought that's why I kind of had it as a tricky game because you're traveling across the coast. Actually, I think the 49ers won that one instead. I don't think they lose that. It might be a trap game potentially because Carson wins. They picked up Jahan Dotson. They have Dynami Brown. They have Terry McLaurin. But I think the 49ers don't get upsetted. I think they go to 11-4 heading into Vegas. And this is going to be an interesting game because, you know, that rivalry, that Oakland, San Francisco rivalry. Like I was at the Ice Cube and E40, Too Short, and Snoop concert, and they had everyone going crazy. They were like, Ice Cube came out and he was like Raiders, that little chant they do, and then E40 comes on, he was like, started chanting Niners and stuff. And that Bay Area rivalry, like they were trying to say, is honestly as long as California's winning, that's all that matters. The Raiders are no longer from California. But, you know, the Niners not to go in there and upset them. I'll never say the 49ers are going to lose to the Raiders because I can't stand them. It's the only team I can't stand because of their fan base. 49ers beat them. They go to 12-4 and going into the last week of the season. You there, Rohan? Oh, I think we might have lost him. Rohan, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. We're good.
Okay,
I think the 49ers, coming off the Commander game, right? They're winning. I have them right now at 10-5. I think this game is going to be tough. They're on the road. They haven't faced an environment like the Las Vegas environment. We know that stadium goes crazy. I think this is a toss-up. Both teams are looking to make the playoffs at this point. The Raiders, they face Pittsburgh the week before, so they are doing travel. But obviously, it's an extra day because both teams play on the Saturday and then they play on New Year's Day on the Sunday. So I think this is a toss-up. I think I'll give this one to the Raiders because they're the home team. But really, the last two games of the year, I've been kind of tossing up between wins and losses over the past couple of streams. I'll say the 49ers lose to the Raiders, drop to 10-6 heading into their final game.
I think the 49ers headed into the final game. So you have them at 10-6. I know I have the 49ers because I won't say the 49ers will lose to the Raiders. And I think the 49ers have a better roster in general than the Raiders. So I think they could still pull that one out. So I think they're at 12-4 headed into Arizona. I think the 49ers have like a top seed. They have a playoff seed locked in. They might even be the number division locked up, or they could be playing for the division. But if they're playing for the division, I think the 49ers have everyone play. If they're not playing for the division and they already have a seed locked up and they can't really, if they lose, it doesn't change anything. I think they might sit some guys and stuff like that. So I think they end up falling to the Arizona Cardinals at least one time. I think they split with the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams. But I think they fall to 12-5, which is kind of a good thing, a bad thing in a way, because I don't like losing the last game of the season from going into the playoffs, unless you want to give your guys like that little extra push. So for me, I think 12-5 is a hell of a spot. And this is the first time I looked at the schedule. I didn't even know when the bye week was. I didn't know when other teams' bye week was. So looking at the schedule, I think the 49ers have a fairly decent schedule, and it's very favorable for Trey Lance.
Yeah, I think that this final game. So you had them at 12-4. That probably wins you the division heading into week 18. At 10-6, I think the 49ers are still fighting to win the division or maybe even make the wild card if the race is that crazy. I think they're still going to compete in this game against the Cardinals. It is a home game too. I think this is a win, and it's surprising given that I'm saying that they'd sweep the Cardinals when they lost both games last year. But I do think this is a win. I think playoff intensity matters. The 49ers have now won 3 straight, in my eyes, week 18 or week 17 games to clinch them a playoff spot or clinch them something. And so I do have this penciled in as a win, ending the season at 11-6.
So that's even 11-6, 12-5. Like you're in the playoffs with Trey Lance, and you get that defense in the playoffs, and you get Kyle Shanahan and the run game in the playoffs. It's a different type of environment because the 49ers in the playoffs, you have the recipe for success: defense and running the ball. And I think with a better quarterback, you could get to the promised land, and hopefully you can finish it and win that. If Trey Lance wins the Super Bowl in his first year, that'd be phenomenal. I think they get to the NFC Championship. I don't know how far they make it in the NFC Championship. I don't know if they win or lose, make it to the Super Bowl, but I think they have a very good chance to make it to the NFC Championship with this roster. 49ers Throwback has one more comment, and then we'll wrap it up about an hour 30 into the episode. So the biggest difference I've seen so far is his confidence, Bullock said. Having that first year under his belt, that experience, his confidence is through the roof. Jennifer Lee Chan said that about, I believe, Aaron Banks. So what do you think about Aaron Banks' confidence level being high? And is that something we should be excited about, or is that something a second-year player should always have?
I think that it's important because just like Lance, right, a lot of the narratives around Banks were negative because he didn't play and he was a second round pick and he was also drafted probably around ahead of his expected draft slot. So I think it's positive because confidence means that he isn't necessarily listening to the narratives just like Lance isn't. And it's important because you're now entrenched in an extremely important role. You got to protect that young signal caller, and it's also your first year as a starter. You got to attack it with confidence. And if Aaron Banks has that, that's important.
And I agree. I think Aaron Banks has always been a confident guy, but I think like going into your second year, your body has changed. You put in the work. You know the system. You don't have to like my biggest thing is when you don't have to think, you're able to play fast, and that's the biggest thing is confidence. Like you don't got to think. You're just playing, and like that's where his confidence comes from, in my opinion. And it's exciting to see because everyone has been bashing Aaron Banks, and I said that the Aaron Banks pick was a solid pick because we were live with David. I was live on Spaces when the 49ers drafted Aaron Banks, and David Lichty was also live with me. He didn't like the pick at the time, and I said no, I'm excited for it because the 49ers went Trey Lance, and my opinion was draft for Trey Lance, like draft for Trey Lance. They drafted a guard for Trey Lance. They drafted receivers for Trey Lance, running backs for Trey Lance. So I'm excited. We had a hell of an episode today. We talked about Trey Lance, OTAs. We got some great conversation about some quotes from today that a lot of these people were providing. Respect to them, hat tip to them, all those, everyone that we said, we make sure we give them their credit for reporting what they report, and it just you and I are just talking about what they're reporting. Thank you for everyone being tuned in. Make sure you guys subscribe to the 49ers Red Zone podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a review, leave a comment, put a thumb up. Make sure you follow Rohan at Rohan Sports 27. Make sure you hit me at Marco_Mark1205 on Twitter. So 49ers throwback, so that's not actually about it's about Lufonga. My bad. I personally thought it was about Aaron Banks because the last one was about Aaron Banks, and usually you start seeing that confidence level in players because of the scheme. But that goes, in my opinion, what I said goes for both players. I think they're going to be playing a lot faster and freer because they know the system.
I actually like this even more now because one thing we've seen from this entire secondary, they've got a swagger about them. Javarius Ward is coming in with the swagger. You've seen Jimmy Ward. That guy does not care. He'll talk shit about anybody he cares about because he thinks his play can back it up. And so if that energy is now revolved around Talanoa Hufanga, and if he's like absorbing it and just taking it in and using it as his own, I think that that's important from a defensive back because you know that mistakes are going to happen. So it's really important to have confidence because you can overcome those mistakes and really have those bright moments as a second-year player.
So that wraps it up for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your boy Marco. That's my main guy, Rohan, to the left of me or to the right of me, depending on how the screen works. On my screen, it looks like my left. So your screen, it might be your right. Thank you for tuning in to the 49ers Red Zone podcast. And you best believe We will be back real soon.